we're now joined. He is now the official Libertarian candidate for President of the United States, Governor Gary Johnson, along with Chris Barron. We'll start with Governor Johnson. Welcome back, and congratulations on your nomination.
Thanks, Gary. And I am officially perhaps the spokesperson for the Libertarian Party as a result of getting the nomination.
Well, how do you feel about being the spokesperson for the Libertarian Party and carrying on that message of one of my favorite campaign slogans of all time, "Live free"?
I'm excited about this. The differences between myself and Romney and Obama. I'm the only one that doesn't want to bomb Iran. I'm the only one that wants to balance the budget, and that, of course, means reforming the entitlements. I'm the only one that wants to get out of Afghanistan and bring the troops home, end the drug wars, repeal the Patriot Act. I think these are differences that I have with Obama and Romney.
Governor Johnson, it's Chris Barron. I was excited to be there in Las Vegas to see you to win the Libertarian Party's nomination. And I wanted to ask you, today the U.S. Senate voted on 4 different budgets, all of which failed, including the president's budget, which didn't get a single vote. And, of course, none of these budgets actually balance the budget. So I was wondering if you could tell people, what is your plan for balancing the budget?
Well, first off, I am going to submit a balanced budget to Congress in the year 2013. That is a $1.4 trillion reduction in federal spending, and I think you've got to start with Medicaid, Medicare, and military spending. Medicaid and Medicare, I would devolve to the states, take away all the strings and the mandates, block grant a fixed amount of money, 43% less than what we're currently spending, and I believe that the states will pull that off, that we will have best practices that will establish great delivery of health care for those that are poor and those that are over 65. Cutting military spending by 43%. That's reducing nuclear warheads from 2,300 down to 500. That's reducing our military footprint on the planet, which are all the troops that we have stationed in other countries. It's the military bases that we have. It's getting out of the current conflicts that we're engaged in. It's reducing the amount of military that are in uniform. It's the civilian staff that goes along with that. It's research and development, and it's intelligence. But I think the biggest threat to our national security is the fact that we continue to borrow and print money to the tune of 43 cents out of every dollar that we're spending. I don't think that's sustainable. I think there's a day of reckoning that's going to occur, and I don't think it's that far off. Statistically, we are only 6 to 8 years from being Greece, 160% of debt to GDP.
Now, Governor, when you talk about balancing the budget and getting us out of Afghanistan, you're the only candidate that doesn't want to bomb Iraq or Iran or Syria. And when you take a look at the defense budget passed by the House is, I guess, just huge and contains a lot of stuff the military doesn't even want. How would you go about, as president, determining what our military budget should be?
Well, like I say, that earlier when I laid out how to reduce military spending, that wasn't happening in a vacuum. There were a lot of people that helped me out that do this for a living to determine that is very doable. I just think that the president needs to veto, and this is one of my promises on top of a balanced budget. I promise to veto any expenditures that exceed revenue, and I'm just going to suggest to both of you that spending will be lower in that scenario than any other possible scenario you could come up with.
Governor, it's Chris again. A lot of people are trying to make the argument that a vote for Gary Johnson is a wasted vote, and that there are these huge differences between Obama and Romney. How do you respond to people who say that a vote for Gary Johnson is a wasted vote?
Well, first, Chris, I would say that it's not a wasted vote. For everybody out there that doesn't want to bomb Iran, for everybody out there who would like a voice at the table saying, let's balance the budget, let's reform the entitlements, for everybody out there that wants a voice to getting out of Afghanistan now, bring the troops home now, for everybody that wants a voice to end the drug wars now, for everyone that wants to bring about marriage equality. Obama had some nice words to say on the topic this last week, but effectively everything's going to go unchanged. Repealing the Patriot Act. Where's the voice to repeal the Patriot Act? Where's the voice to overhaul the entire federal tax system, and by overhaul it, throw it out completely? Income tax, corporate tax, IRS, and replace it with a national consumption tax. In this case, that would be the fair tax. I would argue that if I'm talking on behalf of you with regard to those issues, that's not a wasted vote.
Governor, there was an article last week or earlier this week on FoxNews.com, and the title said Gary Johnson could catch presidential race by surprise. What did you think? First of all, did you see the article? What do you think of it? And in this article, it talks about you trying to get to the threshold of 15% to get to be on stage with Obama and Romney. How do you go about doing that and making sure that you are there when these two do debate?
Gary, I can't say that it's going to happen, but right now I'm polling in the vicinity of 8% against Obama and Romney. And
let me just interrupt real quick, because you mentioned that, but most polls that are being done right now, you're excluded, which to me is just unconscionable.
Right. So I don't think that 8% is a number that you can sweep under the rug. Now, not that that isn't happening currently, but since PPP is polling my name, you can look to a number of states where I'm in that range, and nationally I'm in that 9, 7, 7, 6% range. So I don't know how much of a stretch it is to get to 15%, especially in lieu of the fact that Ron Paul's candidacy is coming to an end. And when it does, I think there is a very viable alternative for those that really do want to hear a message of freedom and liberty, limited government, non-military involvement in other countries' affairs.
Governor, it's Chris Barron again. I wanted to follow up. You mentioned Dr. Paul effectively ending his campaign, and I know I saw a statement out of your campaign saying that you hadn't asked Dr. Paul for an endorsement and didn't intend to. But what's your message to the Ron Paul supporters, to those millions, particularly of younger folks who were energized by the Ron Paul campaign? What's your pitch to them?
Well, the pitch would be just to have a look. Just get online, GaryJohnson2012.com. Check it out. See if you feel like your vote is being compromised. A vote for Gary Johnson as opposed to Ron Paul. I'm willing to argue that no, you're not going to have a compromised vote. You're going to have a voice that is going to be on the ballot in all 50 states. I wish Ron Paul would have been successful, and I say would have. I realize there are many that still think that he could win, but I don't think that's going to happen, and I don't think he's going to go the third-party route, given sore loser laws and all all the prohibitions that he has right now to be able to do a third-party run. So just to check it out, Chris. That's all I'm asking Ron Paul supporters to do. Check it out and genuinely ascertain whether or not a vote for Gary Johnson is a compromise vote.
One thing I want to touch on is the drug war, because you don't have to look too far south of the border this week to see 49 bodies dumped along the road in Mexico. What effect does that drug war, these drug cartels fighting in Mexico, what effect does that have on the U.S. and its drug war?
Well, I think that the knee-jerk always, when it comes to reported deaths and due to drugs, the knee-jerk is always to answer those guns with more guns. When the reality is that this is prohibition. This is just like the prohibition of alcohol when disputes were being played out with machine guns on the streets. This is what we've got going right now. Get these disputes to be played out in the courts, not with guns. And so I believe that legalizing marijuana would arguably dry up about 75% of the border violence with Mexico. And I say 75% because the estimated drug cartels activities that have to do with marijuana are estimated to be at 75%.
Governor Johnson, it's Chris again. You mentioned marriage equality, and you obviously talked there about drug legalization. And I thought one of the interesting dynamics was that President Obama, for all his happy talk, doesn't think that marijuana should be left to the states because he's cracking down on medical marijuana providers in states where it's legal, but did take the position that marriage, something that I know you've said is a fundamental civil right, should be left to the states and should be left up to a vote of the people. Could you care to expand on that a little more?
Well, in this case, I'm an absolute states' rights advocate, but I equate civil rights for gays, marriage equality, along the same lines as the civil rights in the 60s. If we would have left civil rights in the 60s to the states, would we still have segregated bathrooms in the South? And I mean segregated public bathrooms in the South today. I think perhaps that we might. And so the federal government steps in and says this is these are constitutionally guaranteed rights, that the federal government is going to tell all the states that these are guaranteed rights, and there's no equivocating on those guaranteed rights. I think that marriage equality, gay rights fall in that same category. So with President Obama's stance that leave marriage equality to the states, when 40 states have said they're going to not do it in any way, shape, or form, I think that is contrary to the United States Constitution. I believe this is a constitutionally guaranteed right.
Well, Governor Johnson, you also have a running mate running with you in the fall. Why don't you talk a little bit, give us the name of your running mate and talk a little bit about him for a few minutes.
Well, it's Judge Jim Gray. He's a Superior Court judge out of California, former federal prosecutor, someone who has been very outspoken regarding the war on drugs, and someone who has run for the U.S. Senate as a Libertarian in California. So I think very versed on all the issues, terrific human being, and has been involved in public service now his entire life, and I just think that his experience as a prosecutor and his experience as a Superior Court judge in California gives him quite a bit of cred when it comes to let's stop the war on drugs.
Governor, it's Chris again. I wondered if I've talked to reporters all the time, and unlike in previous election cycles where you heard very little about the Libertarian nominee, I'm hearing a lot of people talking about your name, talking about your positions, seeing you a lot more in the press than, say, Bob Barr in 2008 or Michael Badnarik in 2004. And I'm wondering if you're feeling that there is this energy and enthusiasm out there for a Libertarian nominee that didn't exist before.
Well, I don't have anything to compare it to, but what I will say is, it's similar to what Ron Paul said a couple of weeks ago. Ron Paul said, look, I'm not going to drop out of this race because more and more people are coming out to hear what it is that I have to say. What it is I have to say has growing support, broadly speaking, all across the country. That's been my experience, Chris, since I started this a couple of years ago, is that the support for what I'm saying is growing. The attention that is being paid to what I'm saying, and I am believing that I am a messenger here, and that given the opportunity, you guys would probably be doing the same thing. But this is a growing movement. That's what I've witnessed. Will that trend line, will that growing movement equate to 1% at the polls come November, or will it equate to 35% or 40% being in the game, being one of 3 candidates on the ballot in all 50 states? I like my chances.
Well, Governor Johnson, you mentioned Ron Paul. Chris mentioned Ron Paul, and one of the support bases for Ron Paul is the youth vote, the younger generation, and I say that facetiously because I'm not in it anymore. But how historically the youth don't vote in droves like older Americans do. How do you fire up the young people to get them to the polls?
Well, I can't, Gary, I don't have the answer when it comes to that. I mean, the notion that we're not going to have a country here if we don't get our financial house in order, the notion that we should get out of our current wars, bring the troops home, ending the drug wars, I think these are topics that young people are really tuned into. And they should be voting right now in numbers that we've never seen before. But I recognize statistics, and they are there for a reason. They do give direction, and based on prior history, prior statistics, youth don't end up voting. Hopefully, this will be different this cycle.
Governor, I know that you talked about how you're polling nationally at this point, and I've seen a number of state polls from all different places. I just saw one from New Hampshire that had you at 7%, one from North Carolina that had you at 6%. And I know you're going to be on the ballot in all 50 states, but are there specific states or areas of the country where you're going to be spending more time that you think are natural places for the kind of message that you're out there delivering?
Well, I think right now we would be looking at states in the West, so New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, Wyoming, Montana, Alaska. I think those states perhaps would have a higher percentage, potentially higher percentage support than any other state. The notion of actually winning some electoral votes is exciting, and I don't want to discount the notion that this could result in a win. Pie in the sky scenario for a win, though, is polling at 15%, being in the debates against Obama and Romney, and if that happens, I think anything can happen. And I say that because 80% of Americans right now are saying they would consider voting for a third-party candidate. Well, I am the third-party candidate.
Well, Governor, we're running out of time with you. Anything else that you wanted to discuss that Chris didn't have the insight to ask you?
Well, I think that the majority of people in this country consider themselves fiscally responsible and socially tolerant. That's certainly where I lie. I think that's really where the Libertarian Party lies. I just think it would be an exciting notion to have a Libertarian president that would challenge Democrats when it comes to civil liberties. Look, repeal the Patriot Act. Let's get out of Afghanistan. Let's bring the troops home. Let's end the drug wars. Let's bring about marriage equality. That would be a Libertarian president challenging Democrats on civil liberties. And then imagine a Libertarian president challenging Republicans on balancing the budget, on actually coming through with plans to reduce significantly government and the intrusion of government, and let's save this country from what will end up to be a monetary collapse. Imagine a Libertarian president telling Congress, a Republican Congress, you spend too much money.
Well, Governor, real quick, where can people find you on the web, stalk you on Facebook or Twitter, all that good stuff?
So GaryJohnson2012.com, and I would love for those listening to get online and check it out. And thank you guys for having me on.
Thanks a lot, Governor, and we'll talk soon.
Great. Thank you both. Bye.